So usually when we think about the person that we want to be, there's a laundry list of stuff. I want to exercise. I want to eat healthy. I want to put more money in my savings account. I want to go to graduate school. I want to grind more. I want to write a book. There's this laundry list of crap, okay, that we come up with. And what you want to do is write that stuff down on a piece of paper and then go through it and then ask yourself, okay, is this something that I actually want, or is this something that was instilled within me? Is this a want that was transplanted from advertising or parental expectations or societal expectations, or does this really come from me? And what you'll find is that 90% of the stuff on your list doesn't actually come from you. What you're going to end up with is hopefully one thing. Just start with one thing that you actually want. And if you can find that one thing that you actually want, stop and just sit with that for a second. And then what I really want you to focus on is try to do whatever you can to start that thing in the smallest way possible. Think for a moment about the person that you want to be, not the person that society wants you to be. How do you want to be different? And I'm not saying giving up video games or YouTube or any of that stuff. I'm saying okay, so if you want to be a little bit physically healthier, then go for a walk every day. Start with the smallest thing. Do 5 push-ups. Do 2 push-ups. Do 1 push-up. Whatever that smallest thing is, do something, pick something that you can do and that you can actually be sort of satisfied with yourself at the end, right? Because now you're actually moving towards something that you genuinely want. Now, if you try to do this, you're going to run into a pitfall. And maybe you're running into it already. And that pitfall is, but it's not enough. So this is where your mind is going to be super sneaky and it's going to tell you this doesn't make a difference. Because what difference does 2 push-ups make, right? We have all this laundry list of things to do. And so we have to be really careful here. And this is so kind of twisty and sneaky that it's easy to lose y'all. So really try to pay attention to this, okay? When your mind tells you that, the first thing is, what is your mind telling you to do? Your mind is trying to convince you that you should want all of this stuff because all of those habits or all of those desires have been implanted within you, right? So it's trying to trick you into telling you that this isn't enough. The other thing that's really interesting, though, is that when it tells you those things, what is it actually trying to convince you to do? It's trying to tell you, oh, you can't just do 1%. You need to go 100% or nothing, because your mind knows you're not going to go 100%. So what your mind is actually doing in that moment is trying to convince you to do nothing and just continue doing exactly what you're doing because it's doing the cost benefit analysis and it's kind of saying, hey, actually we can get a ton of benefit by just watching YouTube and playing video games every day. So don't bother with that other crap. It never works. We've tried it before, right? And so we know it's not worth it. So you've got to be super careful about that pitfall. Just notice what it's kind of trying to accomplish. Notice that it's kind of trying to keep you stuck. And the reason that it's kind of trying to keep you stuck, because the mind does this really interesting trick, is that it convinces you that you don't want to change. That's what it's trying to do, right? Saying it's not worth it. And if it's not worth it, then we don't want to do it. And if we don't want to do it, we can continue doing what we're doing. So this is what's so tricky, is that sort of lack of readiness actually comes from the mind. There's one pitfall that we have to worry about, though. If you pick one thing and you start to do a tiny little amount that is aligned with what you want, your mind is actually going to try to pull a really interesting trick on you. The second you start to move forward with something that you want, your mind is going to remind you of all the stuff that you should be doing, because it's going to get all tangled up and it's going to say you should be doing this, you should be doing this, you should be doing this. So doing 2 push-ups a day or walking 15 minutes a day isn't going to be enough. So it's interesting because the second you start to develop forward momentum, the mind will actually trick you by sort of telling you, hey, it's not enough. And what your mind is going to tell you is that it has to be all or nothing. Usually when you try to make a change, you try to overhaul your life. So why does the mind do this? Why does the mind tell you that it's all or nothing? Because the mind knows, hey, if I make it all or nothing, this dumbass is going to choose nothing. And then what we sort of tell ourselves is, okay, I should do all of this stuff, right? But then there's a part of your brain that's actually playing that tape through to the end, even if you haven't. And it's saying, okay, why should we do that stuff? So we can get more money. Why do we want more money? So we can retire early. Why do we want to retire early? So we can do what we want. What do we want to do? We want to play video games. Why on earth would I waste 30 years when I can actually jump straight to that right now? And this is why we're not ready to change. The other thing to consider is that if we really do want to develop discipline, that comes at a cost, right? Exercising, eating healthy, working hard, those come at very high costs. So how is it that human beings develop the capacity to pay those costs, develop the willingness to pay those costs? That comes from a competing interest. And this is why things are so hard right now, because it's so hard to know what you want. Why is it hard to know what you want? Because the world is brainwashing you to want other things, right? But when a video game company is trying to sell you stuff, they're thinking about their own interests. They don't care about whether you stay at home and, become degenerate. So our society has made it so that we've forgotten or lost the capacity to even know what we want. And so start with that list of shoulds, and parents can kind of do that kind of stuff too, right? Where they tell you, you should look a certain way, you should have this kind of job in society. Instagram and like all these other social media things, magazines, movies, they're telling you should look a certain way or dress a certain way. So they're shoving what you want at you, but it's not really what you want. It's what they want you to want. And so how do you get around that? There's a really important question you can ask yourself is, even if you don't want to change today, so be honest with yourself. Do I want to change? No. Am I ready to change? No. Do I want to become disciplined? No. So be it. Do you wish you were someone that wanted to change? And if the answer to that question is yes, then come up with a list of all the crap that you should do and try to find a single thing that you actually care about and move one step towards it. But be careful, because your mind will create a pitfall, because it'll tell you it's not enough. We have to do everything. So be super careful about that pitfall of your mind. Really focus on what you want and try to implement the tiniest change possible.